Huge game tomorrow. A lot of importance, not just in the East, but in the league. I like this Kentucky team a lot. I think that offensively, still sort of working it out just a little bit. I love Devin, one of the best. I mean, his arm talent is ridiculous. He can make every single throw. I think he's still sort of working through what Liam wants him to do. I love the wide receiving core. I love the running back. I love the back end defensively. So there's a lot of pieces here to do really special things. Florida has some dudes. They're a better team than people realize nationally. If you watch them on tape, they're really physical. That game against Utah was just a couple plays here or there. It looked worse on the scoreboard, I think, than it really was. So I'm expecting a very physical game that's going to be decided by maybe a field goal, less than a touchdown.
Obviously, you know Lexington well, so
I love this place.
What's
I want my son to go to school here, Cameron. No.
What's your favorite part about coming back here? What do you love about it?
I love the people. Lexington's a wonderful city, especially this time of year when the weather's so perfect. I love the fans here in every sport. You know, certainly what Cal's built here is remarkable on the hardwood, but what Mark's doing with the football program, I just love it. They've taken his identity. It's a very tough blue-collar bunch, and I love that. I think he's one of my favorite people in the league. I love his spirit. I love the way he carries himself. No BS ever. He tells you what he thinks, and he lives what he thinks, and I just love that about him. It's that, you know, old school Ohio upbringing with really tough brothers. I did a feature on him last year after he passed Bear Bryant as the all-time winning coach here in football, and I just love everything about him. He's a phenomenal dude. He is desperate for me to try his bourbon. I'm going to take him up on it.
With Kentucky being 4-0, not having faced a tough schedule so far, how much stock do you put into those games going into a big game like this?
I put a lot of stock into 4-0, and it's easy to say, oh, they ain't played nobody, Paul. But to me, I think when you do what you're supposed to do against the opponents you're supposed to do it, and they're really blessed, though, honestly, because they've had time to sort of work through some of that stuff offensively. They turned the ball over a little more than I'm sure they'd like to, and this is a stiff test. Florida's really good. But if you're 4-0, man, you're 4-0. I mean, I think the same thing can be said for Missouri. They're undefeated right now. People can kind of say, okay, who have they played? Same for Georgia. But the fact is they're undefeated. And so each of those teams, I think, this weekend have quite a test. And so I would be very optimistic with that. I mean, I think right now what we're looking at on Saturday is we're going to find out quick who the second best team in the East is. I still believe in Georgia being the best team in America. And they're still figuring some things out too with Carson Beck behind center. But they have so much depth in Athens. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches for Kirby and has been for several years now.
You talked about, Georgia kind of being, in your mind, best team in the SEC, best team in the country. So for a team like a Kentucky or Florida, how do you close that gap?
Beat them. This is going to be massive for Kentucky. If they get out of this one with a victory and they go down to Athens next weekend undefeated at 5-0 against what we expect to be, a Georgia team in the same boat, I mean, that one's going to have a lot of juice, man. A lot of juice. And so, I mean, look, man, it's Ric Flair. 2 claps and a Ric Flair. To be the man, you got to beat the man, and Georgia's the man.
What are a couple of things Kentucky has to do to pull off the
Take care of the football. I think they got to take care of the football this weekend. Again, I love Devin Leary. You watch that guy on tape and it just blow your mind. I saw a stat when he was at NC State. I think the number was 228 straight passes without a pick. He's had several this season. And so again, I think that he's in a position right now, and I base this off of talking to my colleagues who are former quarterbacks who know very well. He's making some throws based on his intellect and acumen. He thinks those holes are going to be there. Sometimes they're not. I love the aggression. I think Mark Stoops would rather Devin Leary have picks by being aggressive than not throw those footballs, because as he gets more comfortable with the wide receivers and they get more precise with route running and all those things, they're going to have more explosives. If you talk to any coach on the earth right now about what is the biggest separating factor in wins and losses, it's explosives. So he'll take some of those picks, being Coach Stoops, I think. You don't want turnovers, but you want to see that aggression.
There's awesome environments in the SEC like LSU, Florida, Tennessee. How do you feel about Kroger Field?
I love this place, man. I think it's underappreciated. I think it's a great fan base, and when you look at the relevance now, like the number one thing in college football is relevance. You look at what's going on out Boulder, right? If you're relevant, all of the cathedrals are so cool, and especially in Ireland. I mean, in the SEC, it's the best football on the planet, man. And tomorrow is going to be awesome.
How do you feel about the realignment? They were talking about it earlier. It's going to be changing.
It's unique and new and different, but it's kind of where we are. I think in order to have sustainability in the overall athletic departments, I think that the administrations are in a place right now where that grant of rights is so important. I don't want to get too far in the weeds for your viewers because this is all wah. But follow the money. I mean, it is about where you can have financial sustainability and stability for your athletic program. I'm thrilled because we live in the SEC. I'm so glad that Texas and Oklahoma are coming to the SEC. Massive, powerful, national or international brands are coming into the league, and I think it's great for the league. And Texas has already proved. They went into T-Town and won. And wow, I mean, what an abundance of talent and great scheme that Sark's putting together down there. I would be very bullish as an overall SEC fan about where the league is.
Yeah, Jordan was saying, who knows what the Kentucky-Florida rivalry will look like once there are no divisions.
Right.
Do you think, rivalries are still going to work themselves out? Will
I
they
hope
change?
so, man. I hope so, because if McGee was standing right here beside me, we would tell we always talk about NASCAR when it comes to this realignment thing, because we lived what happened with NASCAR. It was all new. They expanded. They went to different markets. They had new fans. And then all of a sudden, everybody was sort of like, wait a minute, what about tradition? And what makes SEC football great is tradition. And those rivalries are part of that fabric. And I don't want to lose it. I do want to see Texas and Texas A&M, like those kind of things. It's going to be cool to see. But I want these traditional SEC, we don't like you rivalries to be maintained.
Anything else for Marty?
You mentioned earlier during that package on Mark last year. What was something that you learned from that, or something that you didn't know about him now that kind of sticks with you now after getting to spend that time with him?
I admire him so much in so many ways, because I think what we really want in this life is hope, belonging, and authenticity. And he has, for the people that love Kentucky, offered hope. He's offered belonging. You can tell that how the transfer portal. The great players want to come here. Devin Leary could have gone anywhere. He chose here because of that belonging aspect. And then there's authenticity. Mark is real. He is not going to project anything except for exactly the human being that he is. And I love that, and I think all of us love those three attributes. That's just fundamental human elements. And so I love that about him. I don't know, man. I love real people, and that's why I really like him a lot and admire him a lot.
Go ahead, guys.
How do you like Lexington?
Oh, it's always treated me really well, except one time when I don't really remember much of that trip. But besides that, it's always been a lot of fun. It's a beautiful place. The people are always so friendly, so a lot of friends here.
Obviously, the rivalry looks a lot different now than it did when you were playing. Before we get to now, just what are your memories of the rivalry? Just the fans don't like each other still.
No, but there's been a lot of incredible games. I know the streak went for a long time, and there's a lot of fans here that were grateful when that ended. But I can remember the games back in the day. I can remember Chris Doering's touchdown from Danny to keep that streak alive, and every game that I played here and at home was very competitive. One got a little bit out of hand, but the rest were always competitive. My sophomore year when we played here, that was such an amazing game. And then a couple weeks later, Kentucky beat LSU, who won the national championship. And so it's just a lot of great memories. There's been a lot of great games, and I expect tomorrow to be another exciting one.
When you talk to Kentucky fans, do they ever bring up that bid from Taylor Wyndham?
Every now and then. Most people are like, "Hey, we're sorry to mention this," but I'm like, don't be. It's part of the game, and honestly, it was as much to do with my, just a weird fall on my right tackle's knee as it was the hit. So, it's a good play by him.
What do you think about what Stoops is doing here with Kentucky and program building?
I think he's done an amazing job. He really has. You look at their consistency throughout his time here, how fundamentally sound. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow, but they know their identity. They really know who they are. They stop the run. I think they're the number one team in the SEC stopping the run right now. They're able to just do a masterful job at getting tips and overthrows, and when a quarterback's a little bit off, somehow they're going to get some turnover to set up their offense in good field position. They always put a priority on running the football and then play actions over the top and good in the screen game. It's just that constant identity, and it based on their players changes and adapts to their strengths, but it's still the same identity and the kind of his plan to win, and he's really good at teaching it. And I also think that it's, for a while now, they've been one of the better programs at teaching the fundamentals of the game. Very rarely does a Kentucky team hurt themselves. Especially this year, you've seen a lot of teams hurt themselves, put themselves in bad situations, and Kentucky very rarely does that.
UK versus Florida has always been like sort of this rivalry. It's always an exciting game year after year. Do you think there's is there any sort of particular excitement about this year?
Yeah, I think it's massive in the East. I think it's big for both of these teams getting into conference play and both having really tough schedules. Kentucky's gotten used over the last few years to starting off hot, and this is a big game in both teams' schedules because Florida kind of got back on the right track against Tennessee, and Kentucky hasn't necessarily played that big opponent yet. So this is going to be that really first test, and it's an exciting game. So it really sets the tone for getting into that middle hard stretch of the season.
What do you think about Devin Leary?
I think Devin is silly talented. I mean, super strong arm. I don't think he always has to use it as strong as he can rip. Me and Jordan were just talking about it, and it's like he's got to have one of the stronger arms when you look around quarterbacks right now in college football. It's silly. He can make every throw. Looking back at last week's game, one of his out routes, it's from the far hash, and he just rips it, makes it look silly, and that sets up the out and up. And so he can make every throw. He's got a lot of experience, makes a lot of adjustments at the line, a lot of calls. I think he's got so much trust sometimes in his arm and his playmaking ability that sometimes he'll hang on to it. Maybe, especially against better competition, you might want to get it out faster, take your check down. But man, he's just got a lot of talent. I'm excited to see how he plays in this game and some of the bigger ones because he's got everything that you would want in a big-time quarterback. And now it's how do you handle the stage?
Anything else for Tim?
You have a prediction?
Yeah, watch SEC Nation.
What are you going to be looking for in the game? What are some things?
Well, both teams have been doing such a good job at stopping the running game of opposing teams. And I think that's really such a big part of this game is being able to control the line of scrimmage, time of possession, ball control, and then being able to capitalize in the red zones. Field goals won't win it. Touchdowns are going to win this thing. And I think that really starts by who can control the line of scrimmage.
Kentucky was going after Graham Mertz in the transfer portal and then opted up with Devin Leary. Do you think that's going to provide the extra motivation for him?
don't think it provides any extra motivation. I think both teams should be motivated. This is why you go to these schools. It's for SEC competition. It's for these games. There's going to be a lot of people watching, and it really does set the tone. Everything's in front for both teams, but you can't let a game like this, slip. That it truly can destroy your whole season.
For you personally, how are things for you? And the documentary was obviously huge. I don't know if you wanted to speak on it or if you're allowed to talk about it, but I mean, what was it like to watch that and just kind of relive those years, a special time in your life?
It definitely was, special to just have that those 4 years with all of amazing teammates and coaches, and just love those guys so much. And we don't get together enough like we should, so it's fun to have little reasons to get together. But just so grateful for more than anything. I just think the relationships. It's what made it really special. It still does.
Did you like the doc? Do you think they told you?
To be honest, I still haven't even seen the full thing. I got to see a little bit as we went, and my wife and a lot of other people have. But it's been something that it's just special for me to always get the chance to connect with guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
How do you like Lexington?
I love Lexington. It's honestly I'm not just saying this because we're here. One of my favorite places to come. I think we're going favorite restaurant scene there is. I think this is one of the more underrated stadium environments that there is. Me being a guy that works up in the booth a lot, it's the best booth in the entire country. It's like 2-car garage, so we got plenty of space. Not really something y'all would care about, but I like it.
The Kentucky-Florida rivalry is obviously looking different than it used to be. What are your takes on it now?
Well, look, I think rivalries are so fluid. There are traditional rivalries, but anytime a game has been competitive, a game has had some anger, some emotion on either side, it's going to create a rivalry. And so these kids growing up, maybe it wasn't something that they knew was a rivalry, but quickly becoming one because of the type of game that it's been the last couple of years, really the last 5, 6, 7 years or so. And I think it is one that's heated. I think it's two teams, especially in the state of where the SEC East is right now, that it means a lot in the landscape of the SEC of the East as we move into a conference with no divisions as well. I think we may see it a little bit less, unfortunately, but it's definitely climbing the ranks of competitive, fiery games in the SEC.
What do you think about this Kentucky team?
I really like this Kentucky team. Look, I think every year they're incredibly underrated as a defense. I think Brad White's one of the best in the entire country. Year in and year out, Kentucky is one of the best defenses in the SEC. It's still us media heads and everybody else. We don't talk about them maybe as much as we should. So that keeps them in every game. And I think I'm a huge fan of Liam Cohen, huge fan of Devin Leary. I think they're just starting to hit their stride as far as who they want to be on offense, around Ray Davis, around the running game. But there's a ton of talent. So I think this Kentucky team is in a really good spot. And I think having this game at home, I know they shouldn't talk about it yet, but Georgia on the horizon next week, there's a lot of good things could be happening.
Is it tough to gauge how kind of good they are with the first 4 weeks being, the schedule's not that tough so far?
No doubt, 100%. But again, you look at the track record of this team, you look at the bodies that they have. A guy like Deion Walker up front, I think, is an absolute stud. I mean, this as much as there's a lot of fireworks on both sides of the ball, two best players on the field might be Deion Walker and Cam Jackson, 2 D linemen for Florida and Kentucky, respectively. So it's going to be a physical game. And I like where Kentucky's at. Like I said, I like how this offense is developing under Liam with Devin. I think there's a lot of feel-out process. You have a new quarterback that comes in, and you think, okay, plug and play, right? This guy's played a lot of football. As an offensive coordinator, you're still kind of feeling out what he does best. How do I put my guys in a situation to fit their skill set best? And I think they're just starting to hit their stride.
How much stock do you all put into those first 4 games for Kentucky and Florida? Because Florida had a close win over Charlotte. How much stock do you put into those coming into a game like this?
Because of the recency and rivalry and emotion of this game, I don't think a ton, right? I mean, anything can happen. And both these teams, they've had a couple games where they should have beat that team by a little bit more. And a couple times you're like, okay, that they look how I expected them to. Anything can happen in a game like this. So I think Florida is extremely underrated as well. I said this after their week 1 loss against Utah. I don't think that one was as far apart as the score dictated. And obviously they've shown since then that they're headed in the right direction. So I think it's going to be a battle.
Obviously night games are always fun, but what do you enjoy most about these early kickoff noon games?
as a player, I love that I got to sit on my couch, watch some football at the end of the night. But I think that as a player too, there's so much anticipation for a game like this that is so emotionally charged. You got to sit around and wait all day. It just stinks. You hate it as a player. You just want to get out there and start hitting heads as soon as possible. So I think for the players, it's much better. Wake up, get your breakfast, get out on the field, and you have less time to think about it. So less nerves are going to kick in, less time to kind of just sit there with anxiety and on your phone. So I think this is best case scenario for these kids and for the type of game that it's going to be.
What do you make of Devin Leary so far?
I think Devin's a stud. Again, you switch systems. You come in with new players, new system, like I said. There's going to be some growing pains. And I think the feeling out process of what he does well, how he controls things at the line of scrimmage. I was talking to Liam this week and joking because I said, hey, I was watching this on film. Looks like Devin checked this one at the line, did he? He goes, oh, yeah, checked a few of them. So I love that relationship, though, that Liam's got a ton of confidence in not just the talent of his quarterback, but to trust what he's seeing on the field. And I think you're starting to see Devin have a little bit more autonomy over what's happening. He's played a ton of football, but again, in a different system. You come into this system, he's just at that point now where he's seeing things so clear that if he sees something at the line of scrimmage, he's going to attack it. And he did last week a few times. That big touchdown down the left sideline on the out and up was an adjustment on the fly. And Liam is giving him the leash and the trust to be able to do things like that. And that's when an offense is really scary, because you can't show a guy like that that's played the kind of football that he has what you're doing pre-snap or he's going to hurt you.
Will you give a prediction?
You know what? I'm going to give a prediction tomorrow. I don't have it figured out yet. I really don't. This one is, and usually I do. Usually by Friday, I'm like, oh, I know it's going to be this team or that team. This one, I really don't know yet. I'm excited to watch it.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for, I think, for both sides, the team, it's really strength on strength as far as both teams want to run the football. So I actually really go to the quarterbacks, and I think whoever makes the big play, but even more so, whoever doesn't make the big mistake at the quarterback position, Mertz and Leary, I think, is going to be the team that wins. In games like this, because they're so evenly matched, it's cliche, you go to the turnover battle, but I think whichever quarterback protects the football, honestly, because of the style of both these teams and how they want to play, I think it's going to have the best chance.
So what's holding you back from making that? But is it the quarterbacks?
Well, we do it on set tomorrow, so
well, in your brain, I guess, or what?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really which team is actually going to have success running the football, because both offenses want to do that. Both offenses have capable quarterbacks, but both defenses are set up to stop the run. So whoever finds that little edge in the run game, because how the rest of the offense is predicated around it, I think is going to have that advantage. And I don't know yet.